So you're back for episode 3. Well, unfortunately, I made this video to tell you guys that I decided to drop the series. Now I'm just fucking with you. You should have seen your face though. As you all know from the previous King's retellings, the homies have finally left that whack-ass school in search of family, friends, survivors, and maybe even just a sprinkle of hope if they can manage it. Little do they know, the only thing awaiting them is death and more fucking zombies. Let's get into this episode of a King's retelling of High School of the Dead. So we pick up with the news reporter from the last episode biting the dust and the main cast discussing the state of things. T-Money is pissed as usual at the notion that nobody has any answers as to what's going on. This is when Takagi explains that no news station is going to be broadcasting much of anything, as chaos would surely break out among the living if news reporters start basically reporting on all the riots and looting and shit like that going on. We cut to a scene of CNN News reporting on how fucked up the US is, and that's when you know everybody is down bad and that shit ain't getting better anytime soon. Moscow is fucked, Rome and France have riots breaking out and shit, and London is apparently just chilling, which we know is highly inaccurate. Moving on, we get this really bogus scene of the characters dropping these weirdly accurate statistics on various places throughout the history, as if the target audience of neckbeards and depressed history majors didn't already know how bad these shits were. The party gets into formation JRPG style and gets ready to steamroll through the final undead bosses before unlocking the open world portion of the game. Basically, after upgrading each of their classes, the once Dark Souls-esque mobs become a piece of cake as the group decides to protect a group of NPCs. Okay, every episode I literally have an issue with something that one of the characters does, and this one has not failed. Takagi makes a statement about how the Zombozos don't react to anything except for sound, and Rei states that they basically have to make it outside regardless. Jin Sakai then tries to test her gangster and tells her to go test Takagi's theory out of nowhere, in the process leading T-Money to volunteer. At this point, I could care less about the weird passive-aggressive undertones as long as the show keeps going on. But what really makes me mad is that Psycho then objects to T-Money going even though she just told somebody to volunteer instead of her. Like, make up your mind, dude. Okay, so then T-Money turns into a straight gangster as he walks down into the crowd of zombies and proves that they don't respond to anything except for sound. In the process, he causes a distraction for the group and gets everyone out safely except for this guy who added nothing to the anime. Fake ass Ishikazu. We officially reached the halfway point of the episode, and yet again, the Goonies find themselves being attacked by the ops due to that one guy making hella noise as they were leaving. At this point, all of the NPCs start dying one by one, and it kind of makes me question why they were introduced in the first place if they were gonna die like 5 minutes later. After my nigga Hirano spits some game at Takagi, the homies secure the bus and get this weird scene of Shizuka not knowing what the fuck a car is apparently. Also, we set our sights on another party of survivors being chased off in the distance. This part is weird because Psycho reveals that one of the guys in their party is Mr. Shido, a teacher at Hope's Peak Academy. As soon as Rei hears this man's name, she kind of starts acting strange as if she knows something about this guy that nobody else knows. She actively goes out of her way to tell T-Money that they should not save this dude and they should just leave him and the others to die. I can't really speak for Shido because a few minutes later, he seems to be corralling the students towards the bus until one of the homies trips and hurts himself. Shido wastes no time in putting this kid out of his misery by curb stomping his face and sealing the little homie's fate. Side note, as much as I know I'm gonna hate this guy, he gives a little monologue and that shit was swag, yo. He's like an evil Whis. That's the impression that I get. Homie is like an evil Whis. On the bus, Whis starts talking about how they need to appoint a strong and valiant leader, and Rei turns to T-Money and starts talking that mad shit, yo. She basically says we shouldn't have saved this guy and that they're gonna regret ever helping Shido, basically casting the blame on T-Money for saving Shido, but also this entire group of students. And that's when I start to get a little hot. Okay, realistically, if there's a zombie apocalypse and I see a group of people in need running towards me, and I have the ability to save them, I'm going to. My first inclination isn't to pick and choose who dies, unless me waiting for them is a direct conflict of interest for my own life. Basically, Rei is on some bullshit again, at least when it comes to how she's guilting my nigga T-Money for saving people who genuinely needed help, Shido aside. Shido asserts himself as leader, and Rei jumps out of the bus in defiance, leading T-Money to go out and try to talk her down for obvious reason. The next scene is actually on some goofy anime shit. A bus full of zombies flips and perfectly blocks the terror squad off from the others before everyone decides to meet at the local police station as soon as possible. This closes out the episode, but not before we get the stinger of T-Money and Rei stumbling across this motorcycle of a zombie that previously tries to body T-Money. I'm glad that they showcase an actual means of transportation for the two instead of trying to have us believe two high schoolers were actually going to make it on their own through a zombie infested city. Okay guys, so we made it to the afterthoughts section of the episode, and I really don't have any good thoughts about this one. I honestly feel as though the pacing kind of takes a dive and the amount of exposition skyrockets. All in all, it wasn't like most of the shonen that I see nowadays, where the plots just recycle over and over again, just with a different rebranding and package. I'm just kind of making a big deal out of nothing. At this point, the zombie killings is getting really lame, and I'm not exactly impressed by it anymore. But those are like my general thoughts, and honestly, they're kind of nitpicky. This episode wasn't necessarily bad, it was just like very average. That's why I said I don't really have any good thoughts about this episode. I really have no thoughts about it, in all honesty. If what you saw in this video, subscribe, comment your hot takes, and give that like button some hell. I will see you fiends in the next one. Peace.